this will be a speed run. Stay with me. There we go. Who's working from home? That's not that many. Who's working from a co-working space? Nobody. Who's working from an office? You came to the right talk. Who can work from home for 1 day a week, which is often like Friday, and it's kind of the slacking off day? Yeah, do you know that? I find it super weird because I always work from home, and it's not the slacking off day every day. But yeah, sometimes that kind of seems to depend. I know a lot of people where it's like working from home is weird and nobody gets anything done because everybody is doing other stuff. I don't agree on that, and I'll try to show you how the model can be different. Why am I talking about that? I work for Elastic. We're fully distributed. Everybody works from home pretty much, and it works very well. So let's see how that goes. This is our logo, which is not a flower. Some people think it's a flower. It's a cluster. So it's like a cluster from the software that we build, but it's also the cluster of people that we have. And we always say it's kind of unstructured, distributed, diverse. This is what is in the logo, even though nobody gets it. But that's the point of the logo, and it's kind of the part of the company culture. By now, we're more than 800, fully distributed. We call ourselves the Elasticians. We actually had a vote on that. We had many great ideas of what to call ourselves. We had this, for example, the workers of Elastic. We had other stuff as well, like the Elasticteers, and I like that the Mickey Mouse has our logo in the ears. We had a lot of other kind of very creative ideas, like I especially like Homo elasticus. So there's kind of like a lot of creativity around that, and everybody is very much into the team spirit, even though everybody's just sitting at home and doing their own thing. We are, I think, covering 34 countries right now. We have something like 30 languages spoken, and I think we have 19 time zones at the moment, which is covering a lot of ground. And yes, there will be some pain about time zones, but we're trying to work around that as well. And we have 16 offices. We still have some offices. For example, we have a very small one in Berlin, but that's only because one of the co-founders is here and he always had his office. And it's like, for 3 of the people in Berlin, that's their office. Some offices are bigger, but generally everybody is working from home or can work from home whenever they want, at least on the engineering side. And we're kind of not accidentally distributed, but we always say we're kind of distributed by design. So these are the 4 co-founders. Shai on the left-hand side, he started Elasticsearch. He's from Israel, like Uri on the right-hand side. And I think both of them were living in Amsterdam, where Shai, kind of the center-left guy, was based. But Simon, kind of the third one, he has always been based in Berlin. So even the 4 founders back then, when they started the company in 2012, already they were distributed. And that's kind of like in the company DNA, because it's kind of like right from the start, everybody was distributed, and it was not something that had to be added afterwards, but it was kind of like that from the very start. We don't like the term remote, because remote kind of always means you have like the central hub, and then you have some remote people working around that, and we don't think that works very well. If you have like 70% of the people in one office and they can kind of go for a coffee and make some decisions, and a lot of others are cut off from that, we don't think something like that would work. For us, everybody is distributed, and it's like most of the people working together are not in the same country. So decision processes have to be transparent and online, and nobody's kind of cut out of that. So that's why we always say we're distributed and not remote. Even though we meet twice a year. So we have the engineering events called the Engineering All Hands, and then we have the sales event, because, well, engineering and sales doesn't match that well. So we have kind of different events for those. But we meet twice a year to kind of see what everybody is up to and make plans for the next half year. This was our fall event in Berlin. You can see these are all the engineers we had in fall. We've grown quite a bit since then again, but yeah. That is what it looks like when all the engineers meet twice a year, and it gets kind of crazy. Values. What do we believe in? First off, everybody is an adult and trusted, so my colleagues don't really know where I am today, but that is fine. Everybody trusts that I'm kind of doing the right thing. And you're working on stuff, and the managers normally say, I don't want to know what you're working on today. I really don't want to know it. I want to see like the progress over the next few months, but I don't want to know what you're doing right now. This is not, we're not doing micromanagement or anything. Like, you're the right person to do your job, and you just do it. And we trust that you're doing the right thing. it's okay that you have families and passions. Like, you're not expected to work 60 hours a week. We have, for example, for the Americans, that's something very unexpected. We have, if you have kids, you have 16 weeks of vacations for that, which seems to be wow for the US. It's kind of normal for us. But for them, it's kind of like, this is a very unusual concept. And that is totally fine. You should be able to take initiative. Like, most of the time, you're not being, or some of the best inventions we had was not that somebody said, like, you should work on this, but it was more like somebody came up and said, like, there is this problem, I want to work on this. And then your manager probably says, okay, you have 3 weeks, kind of try to see where you can go with that. And after 3 weeks, people came up with great stuff. So that is something, people take initiative. You often volunteer to do stuff. Sometimes you're being voluntold. Because not all the work is fun all the time. So sometimes people just, yeah, there is this boring task somebody needs to do. Unfortunately, somebody has to do it. Please do that for us. But you'll do something fun afterwards again. So it's kind of like you need to find the right balance for everybody. Progress over perfection. We believe in doing stuff, and getting somewhere is better than kind of like waiting for the perfect moment. It's sometimes you make mistakes, and that's okay. That's a learning process that just happens. And doesn't matter if it's distributed or in a central office, it will happen anywhere. It's just like, you have an idea, you go crazy, you do whatever you feel like. Communication is open and public. Like, you can join all the Slack channels, you can jump on lots of Zoom calls. Like, these are all the public events. You could pretty much do just calls all day long, even though that's not really what you're supposed to do. But yes, you could. And everybody can see like what is going on and just jump on any call where they think, well, I might add some value here, or this might be relevant for what I do. You will get a lot of invites, but you need to be very good at like finding out what makes sense for you and just filter out what doesn't. Otherwise, you will just go crazy with meetings. New products join the family. Like, every now and then, we don't like to say we buy some company. We always say they join the family. And that's also kind of part of the growing experience. And oftentimes, these companies are used to working in one central office. But that's often kind of broken up very easily or naturally. For example, we bought the machine learning company. And they were all based in London. But now their technical lead moved to Amsterdam because I think some family reasons or whatever. So even they just kind of like adopt that distributed nature very quickly and then change how they work and where they move. So that seems to have been working out for us very well. There are definitely downsides. I don't want to kind of hide that. Time zones are a thing, and if you need to schedule a call between Asia, Europe, and the US, somebody has to suffer. And in the past, we sometimes have made the mistake, since we were rather Europe and US heavy, that always the Asians had to suffer. But it helps the team spirit if kind of you share the pain a bit. So if you always do the call like in the morning for the US, in the afternoon, evening for the Europeans, then it's in the middle of the night for all the Asians, which is not great. So for example, in our team, we have alternating calls. So one is at 6 a.m. in the morning, which is definitely not my time, but well, somebody has to suffer. And the other one is 5 p.m. in the afternoon. So we kind of try to share the pain, and that it's a team effort. Everybody has to suffer a little every now and then. That helps kind of like make everybody part of the team as well. Communication can totally fail in the distributed system. Like, some people could probably work very well together in an office, but like if it's just online, they don't get kind of like the subtle hints of communication, and stuff just goes wrong. And it happened. Some people had to leave the company because of that. It's kind of part of the culture, even though it doesn't mean that if you're in one office, communication will always be perfect. There is no guarantee for that. It's just something that you need to be aware of and you kind of need to work on, that communication can fail. And you need to know, like, at some point when you don't reach any common ground by Slack or mail, you probably need just a video call just to work something out. Cultures are different. What might be a great joke in France can be super offensive in the US. And that's kind of a learning experience for everybody. It's like, what is the line? Where should you go? Where should you not go? And yeah, sometimes you might be a little overcautious, but on the other hand, it's kind of like making sure everybody still feels like it's okay and you don't offend anybody. Sometimes decisions can drag, because what is kind of like helpful is when you get everybody involved in a decision into one room and say, you figure this out, and nobody leaves before you have figured this out. if everybody is kind of around the world and time zones are different, then people are like, yeah, I need to put my kids to bed, or I need to go for dinner, or whatever. And then it's like, okay, let's discuss that the next time. And sometimes decisions just drag like that. So it would be easier if you could lock everybody in the same room, but that's not physically possible. But yeah, you figure this out, you work on it, you improve over time. Very common question is from people who say like, okay, now show me the numbers. Like, how is this working much better than a centralized office? And I don't think there are any numbers like that. We could make up some number, like Dilbert has to do, but that's not kind of the point. I could make up any number and tell you something. It's like, some people say like, oh, software quality, what's the number for software quality? I don't think there is this one central number of saying like, this is software quality, or this is how well teams work. I think they're just indicators that you can point to. The one indicator I'm using right here is, this is the people who joined the company or left in February and March. Yeah, I think that's a pretty clear picture of this is working for most of the people. Like, very few are not that happy with it. So to wrap up, who wants to work from an office still? Who wants to work from home? I hope I convinced somebody. Obviously, we're hiring. I skipped the slide because, well, if you want to work from home or in a distributed fashion, let me know afterwards. If you have any questions, I don't know, about our products, if you want to have stickers, I have a few stickers down there. Just talk to me afterwards in person or ping me on Twitter. And I think we have time for maybe 2 questions or something like that. Speedrun done?
Yes.
Any questions?
So. Yeah.
Hi, Philipp. Thank
Hi.
you for your talk. I'm interested in your hiring process. How do you find out if the people will fit this culture in working in different areas and
so
not
since
connected?
we are an open source company, we often hire contributors, and we kind of know that this is going to work well. It's not always the case. We have a quite intense hiring process. I think the HR department gets around 900 CVs per month right now, or checks 900 people. We do a lot of referrals, like whenever we find somebody who might be a good fit, we kind of try to add them to the hiring pipeline. Most of the time that works out. Sometimes it fails, but as you saw on the departure number, it's not that much. We do a lot of interviews normally, like you will probably do 7 interviews or something like that with different people, and then try to figure it out. And we're also talking to you like, can you imagine working from home or from a co-working space, which we will pay for the co-working space. If you have little kids at home, that probably is not a great idea to work from home. So we're trying to make this work, but you need to be kind of in the right mindset. But we find that often people who are working kind of in the open source world, they're used to just communicating in the digital world and not meeting people in person. So that's kind of a good starting point to go from there. So I think with the open source background and people contributing, that's kind of like the first indicator if this will work out well.
Okay.
Thank you. That answered the question.
So we have time for another question here.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for the talk. It's always great to see that things also work differently. So that's always nice to see. One question I have regards like knowledge sharing. Like, do you code by yourself? Do you still pair? Do you actually have a team that you assign to? Like an example how knowledge sharing works.
So we're not very big on the process. It's very much up to the team, whatever makes sense. Though I'm not aware that any team is really doing pair programming. It's very much driven, somebody codes, opens a PR, and then 1, 2, 3 people review that and iterate on that. And at some point it gets merged. So that is pretty much the code-wise the knowledge share. What we do a lot is that people are not always working on the same thing, but they're switching sub-teams or even bigger teams. So that it's not just one person who has been working on one code base, and that's kind of like the only person knowing that, but that you just move a bit around to see different things. And yeah, we have a lot of sync calls, and for example, the support people will have a call with the engineers to discuss the major bugs they discovered in the last week, or that the problems that customers had. And we have a lot of these sync calls, like we have bug pool and whatever they are called. So we try to have a lot of knowledge share in that, but it's not very formalized. We still have pretty much the startup spirit, I guess. So like written process and everything is like is not big on us. It's just like a learning experience, and as long as you have some people who are practicing that, it's kind of easy for the others to join in and just share that. And I think it's very informal in our talk, and also like with the rapid growth we have, like we are hiring 50 people a month. At some point, like what used to work a year ago is just not working anymore, and then you need to adjust. And we, like I said, it's like progress over perfection. You see something breaks, you try to fix it. No secret on that, I guess. Okay, I hope that answered it. And I think we're done.
Yes, we're done. So thanks a
Awesome.
lot for your lightning talk.
Thank you.
Great lightning talk. Thanks a lot.